so every conservation-minded person out there is well aware of worldwide habitat destruction. And we often think about places like Borneo, South America, and other major rainforests when we think about huge swaths of critical habitat being destroyed. But few people are actually aware of a significant event happening right here in our very backyards, in one of the most critically endangered habitats in the United States, which also happens to be one of the most incredibly diverse places in our country. I'm talking about Southwest Florida, specifically the Pine Rocklands region. This habitat is home to several species which are critically endangered, including gopher tortoises and several insects that occur nowhere else. The site in question is a rare forest known as Pine Rocklands, which essentially are a tract of land that extended from the Everglades all the way up through Miami historically. That is before it all got developed and smushed, and what we have left is less than 1% of the Pine Rocklands region. The land is now being flattened for the development of a Walmart shopping center, despite the fact that there are 2 Walmarts, 3 LA fitness centers, 2 Panera Breads, and 1 Chili's restaurant, all within a 5-mile radius of the proposed development area, which are some of the shops they're planning on putting in there. You have to wonder what kind of thought went into letting a critically endangered habitat to be developed for a Walmart. This habitat, which is located adjacent to the University of Miami, used to actually belong to the University of Miami, and up until a couple of years ago they had to keep it, but once they were allowed to legally sell it, they did so for $22 million. That's what it costs to destroy a species. A developer bought the rare tract of land immediately upon being offered for sale. This developer began developing this critical habitat in 2015, and through a series of court orders, it has been held back up until recently.
After a 4-year fight to try to preserve and protect one of the biggest privately owned pine rocklands in South Florida, a major section of the last roughly 1.5% of the pine rocklands that used to stretch from the Florida Keys to North Miami. The tragic news is, while the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service issued a permit, and before we had the ability of having a court intervene, the developer moved in bulldozers and heavy equipment without further notice and knocked down roughly, I think, 50 acres or so of endangered habitat. We were able, on the upside, to go to federal court and get a federal court judge to issue a temporary restraining order. And currently, I and a number of other environmental groups are suing the Department of Interior, the Secretary of the Department of Interior, and the head of the Fish and Wildlife Service over alleged improprieties in allowing this critically endangered habitat to be developed. And again, the tragic news is a major chunk, perhaps the largest privately owned pine rockland in the United States, was torn down, demolished. Hundreds of rare and endangered plants and trees were bulldozed. And this is an area that's home to almost 24 rare and endangered plants and animals. So tragically, we consider it a very terrible loss, but our fight goes on, and we're trying to basically keep this area from being developed into more urban sprawl and essentially a Walmart superstore shopping center in the middle of what used to be an endangered forest. And the fact remains, there are still areas that have not been demolished that are supposed to be preserved, and our fight continues to try to keep this area one of the rarest endangered forests in the United States from being damaged more.
Mr. Sunshine and the coalition secured an emergency court order which immediately halted the ongoing development soon after it started. This was on Friday, December 8th. As of Saturday, December 9th, a day after the emergency court order was put into place, it seems the developer still is continuing to flatten the land.
I can tell you that the federal court order came down at about, I think, about 2:45 Friday. By Friday afternoon, there was still clearing going on. We contacted the courts. About an hour or so later, we finally saw the clearing stop. But last night and Saturday morning, we still observe workers erecting fences, fencing off, and doing work there. And we believe there's a real good question about whether that federal court order may have been violated and whether the developer may be in some ways ignoring the federal court.
This sort of environmental terrorism should not be tolerated, especially right here in our backyards. We're usually really quick to point our fingers at underdeveloped countries and third world nations that allow the devastation of their local wildlife, but who are we to say anything when we're allowing it to happen right here in our backyard in one of the most diverse and critically endangered habitats we have? If you've ever thought of taking up a cause, this is indeed a critical one. There is still a little bit of time left to further stop development of this area, and the plan is, if the coalition and other environmental organizations can indeed sue and purchase or gain access to this land, it will be reverted and it can still recuperate. Although a large swath of the land has been destroyed, it's not too late. If we preserve what is currently left, there's still a chance that the area can recuperate. And I'll be following this story closely and we'll be bringing you developments as they occur. But of course, I want to hear from you. Make sure you tweet at UJ Radio and let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe. If you don't mind if I check in with you in the future as things develop,
Oh, please.